Thank you so much, Nishtha. In fact, I am today very especially glad to see two of my uh, colleagues. I would call them experts. Dr. Islam, in fact, we have been meeting in various meetings, and we have been discussing about a possible collaboration between MRC and the Ocean Research Institute. I'm sure this beginning, which has now been made, will go a long way, and we would all benefit from that cooperation and value addition. And then Professor Shankari, in fact, again, we have been working on many issues together, especially with regard to Southeast Asia and Indo-Pacific. And I'm sure her contribution, because she looks at these things from a very different perspective, much wider, much deeper, and futuristic. Yes, because we are basically diplomatic professionals. Sometimes we are not able to see beyond a certain point. And that is where, in fact, the academics play a great role in showing the path. Because very often we come across a situation where there is a fork in the path. And we are not sure whether to take the left or the right or stay where we are. And that is where I think a 360-degree consideration by scholars like Dr. Islam and Professor Shankari, they come very handy, in fact. So I'm very glad and also very happy to see Nishtha and Catherine, who are working so hard on preparing a framework for marine spatial planning, which in my view is probably the most important enabler for oceans. So I will be very brief today because I'll have to rush for another conference, which by mistake I accepted without knowing that I also am supposed to be here. I will be listening to the presentations without being kind of present in audio-visual format. First of all, let me also convey greetings to all of you on the World Ocean Day, which we have been now observing for several years. And for me, who has been kind of dealing with oceans in a pretty close format or setting, I think this day means a lot. In fact, I looked at UNSC's statement on the World Oceans Day, and the phrase which really touched my heart was, let's conserve what conserves us. Now, that is a very profound statement, in fact. I have been struggling to find a punchline to make people realize how important the oceans are. And I think SG's statement gives that punchline. Let's conserve what conserves us. Now, you see, if you look at the oceans, I also have science background, so I can probably feel that with a greater depth. Life, in fact, originated in oceans. Ocean, in a way, is a mother of life on the planet. Yes. And not only that, through the entire evolution of life on the planet, the oceans provided the means to sustain. They provided the enabling circumstances to sustain life on the planet. In fact, since I've been dealing with blue economy for many years now, in blue economy, in fact, we have been dealing with both the tangible and intangible contribution of ocean to the human society and the rest, because sometimes we presume that we are the only ones on the planet, which is not true. Planet is much bigger than human society alone. But the contribution of ocean to all of that is immense. But when we look at, for example, say tangibles, is there any sector where the ocean is not playing a frontal role? Be it the food security, be it energy, transportation, minerals, recreation, you name it. And, there are estimates, which I think is an understatement, which says the value of blue economy is around $23 trillion. I think those who calculate this, they calculate this only from the viewpoint of tangibles. Yes, they calculate how much of fish, how much of food, how much of energy, how much of mineral and all that stuff. But if you really ask me, for me, the intangibles are certainly more critical and more important than the tangibles. There was, in fact, an estimate that by 2030, 35, the ocean sectors or the BE sectors, they will contribute more than their land counterpart in terms of the economic value addition and in terms of job creation. Now, it's a good news. Yes, it's a good news, but comes with a warning. And that warning takes me to the intangibles. Again, look at, we breathe without realizing where that oxygen is coming from. Yes, we take it for granted. 50% of the oxygen in the atmosphere is produced by the oceans. And after the whole debate on global warming, how much emphasis and investment has gone into carbon capture? Yes. We are talking about hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. But 1/3 of the carbon dioxide produced by all activities on the planet are absorbed by the oceans. Ocean is the single largest sink for carbon dioxide. And we are struggling to deal with minor issues. Yes. For example, when I always mention, I say the biggest sector, or if one of the biggest, if not the biggest, the automobile transport sector. What is its contribution to carbon emission? Less than 10%. And the oceans give you a straight absorption of 1/3. Now, and we simply don't realize it. And biodiversity. As I just mentioned, we think we are the only species on the earth. Very unfortunate, we are looking at things. Yes. Close to 90% of the planetary biodiversity is hosted by the oceans. And then, I'm sure we are all listening to news and we're talking about, oh, the monsoon is about to arrive, monsoon has arrived, monsoon has stopped, monsoon is taking time to come. Where is this monsoon coming from? The water cycle on the planet is ocean's contribution. Yes. And finally, the amount of heat the ocean absorbs. If we are worried about climate change and warming, but somebody is already doing a great job in mitigating that, and this is oceans. Yes. And how many people really know it or realize it? So on the intangibles, we are not even placing, nor we can place a value on that. Because on the intangibles depend the tangibles and also depend the life itself. Yes. And now when we were dealing with blue economy, you go to any conference on blue economy, there will be an argument that with the land-based resources depleting, let's go to the ocean for additional resources. Yes, because a body of water occupying 70% of the planet's surface, could we go there and get more resources? Now, my question is, how will the ocean respond when we go there? How will the ocean respond? Ocean will say, yes, I can provide some additional resources, but will you look after my health? Because if I am sick myself, how would I look after you? We have been treating the oceans for ages. We have been polluting oceans, we have been dumping waste, we have been overfishing, we have been even carrying on very underwater. We never paid attention to the ocean health till it really became a red line to cross. Yes, till it became a red line to cross. The ocean health is under severe threat. Threat from pollution, which is mostly generated from land. Ocean doesn't create any pollution of its own. It's all from land. From land, who? The humans. Yes. Who? In fact, I looked at a statement which says humans which occupy just 10% of the land have the guts to destroy 70% of the ocean. But that is an immense statement, in fact, what we have done to the oceans. There is tremendous acidification. There is loss of biodiversity. There is warming. Now, if all these things keep going on, believe me, our capacity to control global warming, all bets will be off. Without the ocean health, we simply manage that threat of global warming, which we term as existential threat. Now, the issue is, Professor Islam mentioned about the conference going on in France. And this is also a decade of ocean sciences. Yes. There will be, I'm sure, talk about all these things. How to relieve ocean from the onslaught of pollution and degradation of biodiversity. Yes. Now, when it comes to the factors which are hurting ocean health, some of the factors are visible to us. We can see them. Yes. We can see them, how the ships are polluting. We can see them how the plastic is polluting. We can see how the effluent from the land is polluting. That we can see. But a large chunk of what is impacting the ocean's health, we can't even see that. In fact, I always mention that you have to remember, we see the symptoms on the surface, but the causes are underwater. Now, unless we address the causes underwater, we shall not be able to address the consequences or the symptoms on surface. But UD, underwater domain awareness, is a relatively new term. Why it's new term? Because the immensity of knowledge and technology it needs, we didn't have. Right? We didn't have. how to manage this whole huge space and the mechanisms which were undergoing underwater in terms of the chemistry of water, physics of water, and the biology of water. We didn't have the means to understand that. As a result, we thought, all right, something which we don't understand, we close our eyes. And we closed our eyes. But now with the new technologies available, I think we can dig deep into the water and try to understand what's happening there. Because unless we understand what's happening there, unless we find a way to regulate that, our problem will not be solved. And that is where, in fact, I admire the work being done by MRC. When MRC went underneath the ocean, nobody was doing it, to my knowledge, in India. Yes, especially from that angle, understanding the chemistry, physics, and biology of underwater. We were doing something to understand the security aspect of underwater. But in my view, the biggest security threat would be the ocean health. Right? So today we have those means available to us. I hope more people join you in this campaign of understanding what we can't see. Right? Because that what we can see is easy to understand. What's great fun in that? You can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it. But something which you can't see, you can't touch, you can't feel, how would you understand it? That is the huge challenge which you have taken at MRC. Yes. And I'm very happy that, Professor Islam, you have agreed to join hands in that. Because I know this job is immense and cannot be done by one entity or one nation in isolation. It has to be a collaborative, whole of society approach. It will start from schools and go to the cutting edge of technology. You remember in one of the conferences, somebody asked a child, tell me what is the easiest way to control plastic pollution? And the child said, why don't you do it in the first place? Don't pollute. That is easy to do, but we don't like to do easy things. We want to do complicated. We create problems, then we take pride in solving them. Yes? But Anup, to know whether we are creating a problem, we still have to know the space in which we are operating. And underwater space we didn't know, and therefore we didn't know what kind of serious problems we were creating. But with your contribution and like-minded, I'm sure we will be in a much better position. Arma, you always talk about digital oceans, modeling and simulation. I was amazed to see a report last week where they have created a digital twin of a nuclear reactor. Yes. Which means they will be able to watch the nuclear reactors functioning 24/7 without taking the risk of getting close to the reactor. Arnab, that is the final objective of what you are doing. We identify the hotspots, and can we create a digital twin of that space in understanding what's happening there? That is my dream, in fact. One day, institutions like MRC would be able to create a virtual digital twin where you would be able to see what's happening underwater. and you would be able to take precautions in time. Yes. So that is what I have to say with my limited knowledge and understanding. But while I'm very sad about what we have done, I'm very confident what we can do to recover. I look at Catherine sitting here. Catherine is working so hard on marine spatial planning. And marine spatial planning would be an immense contribution to conserving the ocean and their health. Now, with these words, I will stop. I once again congratulate all of you, convey my greetings, and say, let's take a pledge. Let's conserve what conserves us. Thank you very much.